The restaurant went silent the moment the words left his mouth. Forks paused mid-air. Conversations halted. Even the soft clinking of glasses seemed to vanish. Rowan Hale, a quiet single father in his early 40s with worn hands and tired eyes, stood tall despite the weight of the world on his shoulders. Across from him, the billionaire heiress, Averia Lockhart, a woman whose presence usually commanded boardrooms and gala halls, stood frozen at the long dining table, her breath hitching as every pair of eyes in the room swung toward her. Rowan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His calm tone carried a firmness that no amount of wealth or power could shake. "She's with me," he repeated, steady as daylight breaking through storm clouds. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us of humanity, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Spark. Your support helps these heartfelt stories reach more people. Rowan hadn't planned to step foot into a place like this. The copper-toned chandeliers, the marble floors, the arrangements of white roses on every table, none of it existed in his world. His world was small apartments with leaky pipes, grocery lists calculated down to the last coin, and nights where exhaustion fought with responsibility. He'd picked up extra shifts as a part-time carpenter and driver, trying to provide for his daughter Meira, a quiet 12-year-old, whose asthma kept him awake with worry more nights than he cared to admit. The invitation to tonight's luncheon, hosted by the Lockhart Foundation, came unexpectedly. Meira's school had submitted her art portfolio for a children's charity competition, and the shortlisted participants and their guardians were invited. Rowan didn't want to go. He didn't want to feel small or out of place, but Meira had begged, her eyes bright and hopeful, and he couldn't say no to the one person who gave his life meaning. He had arrived wearing the best shirt he owned, ironed twice but still carrying the faint trace of old paint. Meira wore a simple day dress, her sketchbook tucked under her arm like a shield. The moment they stepped inside, Rowan felt the weight of 100 judgments. People dressed in tailored suits and shimmering dresses glanced his way with polite but unmistakably curious eyes. He didn't belong here, and he knew it. Still, he held Meira's hand and guided her gently. Averia Lockhart was not what he expected. The heiress to one of the largest business empires in the country, she was known publicly for her elegance, intelligence, and icy composure. Rowan had seen her face on magazines displayed by checkout counters he could barely afford to stand near. But in person, she was striking in a different way, quietly observant, her expression soft in the corners whenever she looked at the children's artworks displayed along the wall. When she approached the table Rowan and Meira were seated at, he assumed she was making polite rounds. Meira shyly showed her the sketch of a sunrise over the city's skyline, a piece she'd worked on for weeks. Averia's expression changed the moment she saw it. Something in her eyes flickered with recognition, admiration, and something deeper Rowan couldn't name. But not everyone shared her sentiment. A man seated 2 tables away, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Rowan's monthly rent, scoffed loudly. "Interesting," he muttered. "Even these events have become charity for the charity cases." Rowan stiffened. Meira's fingers tightened around her sketchbook, her eyes lowering. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, Averia turned sharply, her voice cold enough to frost the tableware. "Excuse me?" she demanded. The man lifted an eyebrow, clearly entertained rather than intimidated. "Just saying, the foundation invites anyone these days. Look at him." His head tilted toward Rowan, dismissive and smug. Averia's hands curled into fists. But before she could defend him further, Rowan stepped forward, placing himself between her and the man. Not out of pride, but out of principle. He'd spent years teaching Meira that dignity didn't depend on wealth. That was when he spoke the words that silenced the room. "She's with me." Calm, clear, certain. Averia hadn't expected him to speak for her, and maybe she hadn't expected the way those 3 words would hit her, cutting straight through the layers of rehearsed composure she carried like armor. For a moment she simply stood there, the world narrowing to Rowan's steady gaze. The luncheon continued under a thick cloud of surprised whispers, but something shifted after that moment. Averia stayed near Rowan and Meira, asking about their life, listening in a way that wasn't performative or polite. She learned that Rowan raised Meira alone after losing his wife Meira to a sudden illness that left their lives fractured and raw. She learned he worked multiple jobs to make ends meet, often sacrificing sleep and comfort for his daughter's well-being. She learned Meira's love for art was her escape from the heaviness she tried not to let her father see, and Rowan, reluctant at first, found himself speaking more than he intended. There was something grounding about Averia, something he didn't expect from someone with unimaginable wealth. Meira took to her instantly, animatedly explaining her sketches, while Averia listened like each line was a masterpiece. As the afternoon unfolded, Averia led Rowan and Meira through the gallery setup created for the children. Rowan watched her kneel beside Meira to admire every detail of her drawings, her pristine white dress brushing against the polished floor without a hint of concern. He saw how she softened in Meira's presence, something tender awakening behind her poised exterior. But beneath Averia's composed smile was a heaviness of her own. Rowan noticed it in the way her shoulders stiffened when business partners approached her, in the way her smile dimmed when conversations shifted to financial expectations, growth projections, corporate decisions. She carried an empire she never asked for, a legacy that demanded perfection and control. She wasn't free, not even in her own world. A turning point came when Meira's sketch wasn't chosen as the winner. It wasn't the losing that hurt Rowan, it was seeing his daughter's expression crumble, her hope dim like a candle caught in the wind. While other children cheered and clapped, Meira slipped away to a quiet corner of the garden outside the venue. Rowan followed, but before he could comfort her, Averia knelt beside the girl, her expression gentle and earnest. She didn't offer empty praise or forced encouragement.